Hey everyone, and welcome to season 5 of Lawn Theory. Today we're very excited to have on a special guest. It's Jack Williams with Jack of All Blades. Jack, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for kicking off this season with us and spending time with me. Before we jump in really to your backstory and kind of how you started your lawn care company, kind of walk me through your childhood. Really, that's what we like to do is just kind of get a good biography on who you are as a person, and then
Yeah.
we'll lead into what you're doing now, both in the lawn care profession and outside of the lawn care profession.
Well, I lived a pretty normal life. I started playing drums when I was 12, and through school, I was not good at school at all. So music was kind of my outlet, and that's what I did. I did it through middle school, through high school, playing in church. My family, I was in church anytime the door was open. My parents had me in church. Uh, one of them has always worked at church since I was born, so just kind of my life. And so that's what I did. Graduated high school. Um, I was not good at school. I was in what they call remedial classes. It's basically like reformatted tests because I'm dyslexic, so I couldn't if you don't know what that is, it's like you try to read and then it's like the numbers and everything just kind of jumping around. Uh, so it was just never my thing, and so I always felt kind of like distant from school, and for people that was good at school, I just felt like I was kind of an alien compared to them. But that's why like music was really my outlet. But I graduated high school, and immediately one of my first jobs was cutting grass. It was kind of a crazy job. The guy I was working for basically was contracted out by this big investor, this big real estate investor, who would have, two to 300 homes um, all throughout uh, all throughout the state of Georgia. And so, it was like four different crews, and we were doing like 20 to 30 yards a day, uh, just grinding. And I will say it's not like these houses were either foreclosed. If they weren't foreclosed, they were abandoned. So it's not like we had a customer to make happy. We just went in there, did what we did, and then got out. And you're doing 30 yards a day, and it could be some houses were like 50 miles apart. Uh, but that's where I really cut my teeth in terms of lawn care. Um, and that was between high school and now. Lawn care has been like the most consistent thing outside of drumming. Because I've had so many different jobs that I didn't like at all, and lawn care always seemed like it was kind of my thing. But you know, to get back more focused, I graduate high school. Uh, Again, I didn't have plans to go to college. Did not know what I was going to do with my life. And that about a year after I graduate, I was in an accident and I broke three of my ribs. And uh, I, at this point in my life, I would party a little bit, I would drink a little bit, but I never did any drugs. But I broke ribs and I was given basically it was Percocet, so it was painkillers for pain, obviously. And that was like a huge turning point in my life that I was not ready for. And it's not like I took them like trying to get high, but I took them and I liked it. And it was about 4 or 5 years, dude, of just like a few months I'd be okay, and a few months it was not okay at all, and uh, it was pretty dark. And through this time, I couldn't really hold on to jobs. I probably worked for 4 or 5 different companies in terms of lawn care, and honestly, close to 10 different other jobs uh, outside of lawn care, just because my life was a wreck. Uh, and whatever you think of when you hear drug addict, that was me. I not dependable, thief, liar, whatever it may be, that was me. And so. in 2019, I had a great job doing lawn care. Uh, and this I was kind of salaried, which is kind of that's rare in this field of work to be like given a salary, like whether or not it's raining or not, you're still going to get paid. And I messed that job up bad. I actually stole from my boss, and obviously I got fired. And later on that year, I got fired again from another job, and I got kicked out of my house. And that was just where my life really just fell apart. So 2019, it was December. It was New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve, and my family found out. Everyone kind of knew. My family kind of knew something was always off with me. They knew about my problems with drugs, but they didn't know how bad it had gotten. And so that's where it kind of fell apart. I couldn't lie anymore. I couldn't, weasel my way through stuff. And so I got kicked out. My parents graciously let me move back in with them. Uh, and the very January 4th, I think, of 2020 is when I went to, and it was rehab. And at the time, you know, I I grew up in church, right? I love church things. I knew the Bible. I mean, I knew the Bible better than most people, but it was like kind of just all up in my head. It hadn't really sunk down into like my heart, into like where I actually where your belief system lives, and like where those deep convictions stay. And so when I went to this rehab, like first couple of weeks, man, it was like everything that I knew in my head started to kind of sink down. And it was just really an amazing few months of just like, because I was dealing with a lot of like self-condemning, like shame, guilt, um, everything that, I mean, some of it was rightfully so. Like I was ashamed of what I did, and I was guilty for what I did because it was all, nobody made me do drugs. It was all my choice, and sure that it gets to the point to where it feels like it's not a choice, but all of that was my fault. And I was like feeling like godly remorse for the things that I've done. And so that's where God really started to get a hold of me. And, I was a Christian. It's not like I got saved after drugs. I was a Christian. I was a believer. No, beyond a shadow of a doubt. I was just screwing up bad. And so it was in May, I get out of the rehab, and I get offered a job at the church I was going to be on their grounds crew to cut grass. And
So you kind of make your way back into the lawn and landscape industry.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. And
Uh,
so with that, I know that your life was always, like, you, to your point, was always faith filled, and you were always a believer. And we all sin, we all fall short, um, and so I think I know your story. You obviously, we spoke about it prior to this, but that's one thing that I think is very connecting to this industry, right? So the lawn and landscape industry, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain, and there's a lot of addiction, that's in this industry. And oftentimes I say um, it's the proving ground, right? Or it's the redemption ground of how can you go and do something to make money that is clean, is honoring,
yeah,
and everyone gets a second chance. And I think your story is that of one of second chances and redemption.
yeah.
And so I love that you're willing to share that with everyone because I think it's going to be very impactful. And before you go into getting back into the lawn and landscape industry, kind of what was that? I know you said drums and the lawn and landscape industry were consistent, and um, I assume drums were soothing for you, but it was something that you were probably good at. What were the parallels between playing drums and the lawn and landscape industry?
Yeah, well, I guess it really comes down to my childhood. I growing up, I had to cut the grass at the house, and I had to weed eat. And I just, to be honest with you, when we first moved schools, I was in seventh grade, and we went to like it was like the private school to go to, and it's not like at the time I didn't know because my friends, I didn't know what having a lot of money looked like. You just don't know when you're a kid, like what it means to live in a country club. Like I didn't even know what that meant. And so when I changed schools in seventh grade, none of these kids did lawn care. Like they all, I say lawn care, they didn't cut their own grass because they lived in nicer houses. They lived in gated communities where people cut their grass. And I kind of wore it like a chip on my shoulder, like you don't know how to do a weed eater. Like
Hmm.
you can't edge your driveway. And it's like looking back at it, it's like to get one up on a seventh grader for not knowing how to line edge with a weed eater is hilarious. But I think because of that going into middle school, it's just something that I always enjoyed and kind of had a sense of pride in it. And funny enough, in that same time, in seventh grade, that's when I started playing drums. And now I only started playing because my older brother got a drum set for us one year, and he had it for a year or two, maybe longer than that. But I never touched it. It never interested me at all. But my parents one day were like, my brother Alex, he stopped playing, and they were gonna get rid of it. So I was like, nah, let me see if it's fun. And so I don't remember exactly the initial feeling or like what I thought when I first played, but I do remember thinking like if something about it was just supernatural. And so I guess between that and lawn care, there's something about it that just felt like I'd always known how to do it. Like nobody really taught me. It's just like it was always in me to know how to do that, or like it made sense how to mow a lawn, just like it made sense for me like to know how to play a certain beat. And I know that sounds really ridiculous, but um, I don't know how else to explain it because there's really nothing else in my life that has stuck like those two things, and that I feel, um, to be honest, I don't. Most of the things in my life I don't feel confident in, and I don't feel like I can take the lead on. But lawn care and drum. I mean, I wouldn't have started a business unless I felt totally confident in my ability. And I think I feel more confident cutting grass than I do going on stage every night, just because you know drummers are a dime a dozen. You can go to Nashville and meet someone at a gas station who can probably rip a drum set better than I ever could. Uh, but it's the working with your hands, I guess, and it takes actual work, like sweat, both drums and lawn care, have always been kind of attractive to me. I don't know if that answers your question at all. I know I'm giving the editing team a run for their money on this
Oh,
episode.
no, you're good. This is great. That makes a lot of sense. And I think really when I think about it and hearing you say that, it's almost like it's it goes back to something that I kind of align with, and that's in doing hard things, right? Which is funny coming from someone who owns a software company, right? Is
Yeah.
doing things with your hands and getting outdoors. And what I teach my son all the time is that we do hard things, and you don't have to have other people do things for you. I think that's one of the biggest lies that we're taught um, in the United States is that it's too difficult; someone else can do it.
Hmm.
And it took me a long time to understand that and to overcome it. But then once you get good at something and it's physical, so like when you correlate that with playing the drums or doing the actual labor in the lawn landscape industry, um, you can refine it. And so, and I know we're going to get into this in your story a little bit further on, but how you refine it from going to be, hey, this was my job in high school, to hey, I'm going to start a company out of this, and hey, it was my hobby in high school, but hey, now I'm touring as a professional drummer. and then all the ups and downs and in betweens. Because I think it's really easy in the United States to live what I call an Instagram life, right? Everyone sees your highest highs, but
Yeah,
no one sees the struggles, and no one sees the self doubt, even at the highest levels. Like there are plenty of days where I go, "Am I the right dude to do this?" And so it's how you combat that, and then coming from a faith perspective is knowing that, hey, God qualifies the unqualified.
I was
And
just thinking that, dude. I was literally just thinking that.
yeah, and it's so true, and we get so caught up in the glitz and glamour of oh, I'm not like this person, or I haven't achieved success like this company, that we stop to even look at the platform we have now and kind of where God has put us. And so let's launch back into that a little bit. So you get out, and you said you had got a job at your church. Can you tell us a little bit of what you were doing at your church?
Yeah, so when I got out of rehab, I was offered a job at the church and that I was going to, and there was at the time there was one other guy who worked there who was over this entire property, and it's a big property. I couldn't tell you how many acres, but it's big, and he was doing all of it. There's two baseball fields, one prep. Okay, two baseball fields, two football fields, and a bunch of common areas that this one dude was doing all by himself.
And
And
this was a church.
yeah, he would start in
Man,
the
churches
summer.
are great in Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, okay, I should say it's a church and a school. That probably
Gotcha.
helps
Okay.
make more sense
Hmm.
as to why it's
Yep.
has all that. So it's the school I graduated from, and so yeah,
Gotcha.
he was doing it all, and so I they hire me on, and so I'm cutting. You know, how it worked was like Monday, Tuesdays we do the football fields. The rest of the week we are grass was getting cut every week. Every other week we're doing the bushes. Uh, it's just always there was always stuff to cut. And in Georgia, it's I mean, really anywhere it gets super hot in the summertime. So we were getting there at like 4 in the morning, and we would use the parking lot lights to do all the bushes. So by the time it got 8 or 9 o'clock and it's starting to warm up, we can just hop on the mower and not be killing ourselves, doing all the hard work. But that's what I did when I got home, and I, I always had the dream being a professional drummer, whatever that looked like whatever. To me, it just meant being able to play drums and pay my bills. It didn't necessarily need to be like glamorous or whatever you think of. I just wanted to play the drums and pay the bills, which is like a pipe dream, really. Like it's hard to do, and there's no clear-cut way to do it. And as I was cutting grass, I was playing on Sundays at my church. I was serving doing that. And I remember thinking like, yeah, if all I do is maintain this job and I get to play drums on Sundays and at different church events, that's okay. Because I'm coming off, crazy opiate addiction. Like the fact that I'm holding on to a job for a few months is crazy. And so I just remember thinking, I'm satisfied and I don't necessarily have to have what I always thought would make me happy, which is playing drums at the next level. And around that time is when Mark, who is the singer for Crowns, during this whole time, him and I are meeting once a week because he was my youth pastor through middle and high school, and he'd always been there for me. And around that time, when I'm kind of going through this mind of, I'm content with serving the church, and if cutting grass is what I'm going to do, that's fine. He came up to me. It was in his we were meeting, and it was in his office, and he asks, if I wanted to play for Casting Crowns, and like anybody, like you gotta believe how I felt. Like I thought he was kidding. I couldn't believe it. Uh, and of course I said yes, but there were feelings of like I asked him like right then and there, like, do you think I'm good enough? Like, do you think I can do it? And I'll never forget what he said. He just looked at me. He said, "Dude, none of us are good enough." And that is a picture of what you're saying. Like, G- God qualifies the unqualified. Like, if look throughout the Bible, Moses had a stutter. Moses had all these reasons as to why God wouldn't use him. And there's so many people in the Bible that are the opposite of who today we'd feel. Like the disciples, no, like I would not. th- Those were the rejects. If you really
Hmm.
study the history, those are the rejects of that society. And you know, the Messiah is choosing those people, and I think that speaks a lot to now, like what that looks like, and especially in a society of like status and like portraying your life a certain way. It's like that's all just empty. That's all just really vain, and like when you really think about it, super sad because you think that's the thing. You think that's like because everybody feels that. You could be an atheist, I don't care who you are. Everybody feels that longing for and wanting to attain something but not knowing what it is. That famous interview with Tom Brady, he just won his sixth Super Bowl ring. And they asked him what's next. And he looked at the camera and was like, there's got to be something more. Like, there's not, like, there's got to be something more than this. And he's winning Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And everybody has that sense of there's got to be more than this. And, my story is very redeeming and very crazy, but my, when I see my story, it is not one of, wow, he's in a famous band now, or he got to do what he always dreamed of, which is true, and I'm very blessed by that. But my story is God saving somebody who had dug such a deep hole, and I didn't have to clean up for God to do a work. I didn't have to stop using drugs, stop cussing, stop doing all these X, Y, and Z things. Here I was, but he's not going to let me stay there. He's going to pull me out of it.
Hmm.
He's going to sanctify me. He's going to, the Bible talks about the old man dying, and that's the old flesh. And, we still, Mark says this every night on stage. There's still that old man is in you. Like that is why sin is still a thing after you become a Christian, because we are saved spiritually, living in sinful flesh. And as you walk with Christ, you'll see that he didn't, you're not saved because you got good. Like
Yeah.
if I got saved because I got good, what happens when I have a not good day? The- And so I think it's important to see that in my life and your life who really reflects and is honest with themselves, you don't become God, you don't become a child of his because of the things you stop doing. That's just
Yeah.
not it. Because the thing about it, if that's the case, if you start doing those things again, does that mean you're not his? You're his
Yeah.
because you've put your faith in him. And over time, those vices, those things that are shameful go away. And you're only his because of the work he did, not because of the things you stopped doing. And I know
Yeah.
I don't even know what the prompt was to this question at this point, but uh, I think it's important to know, and people see me who didn't know me before I got in Crowns, and they know a totally different Jack. They know they just
Hmm.
see the drummer in Casting Crowns. But for the people who really
Yeah.
know me, it's like, well, yeah, he plays drums in Crowns, but man, he was a train wreck before. Like he mocked God. He was full out drug addict. And if I can give somebody hope who feels like they're outcast or too far gone or feels like they can't put it down, whatever it is, you know, I'm prime example of like you definitely can because I was down and out, and through what God did in my life, He set me free from that so that I can tell my story so openly so that somebody might get freedom through that to know that regardless of what you've done or how far you've fallen, there's always going to be hope, and there is no too far gone. You know, I read the parable of the 99 sheep. Uh, you know, I was the one that like got away, and God always makes a
Yeah.
way for that one, regardless of what it is.
You had just ended at um, essentially the redemption that you were having, and you were bringing up folks of the Bible. And I think one thing that I wanted to illustrate too, and it's really funny because we were just in a meeting yesterday when we were discussing this. So we were talking about the 99 sheep and sin. And so I feel like I'm really qualified for this conversation today. But if you look at the heroes of our faith, if you look at David, right? When you look at it, there's a man after God's own heart. But David did some messed up stuff,
Yeah, he
like
did.
messed up things. If you really want to dive into some biblical stories, I think the one thing that you will find constant is that God qualifies the unqualified. I mean, you brought up Moses. You have David. I mean, David's own son tried to kill him.
Yeah,
And then if you look at Paul, right? And Paul's evolution of his own coming to terms with his sin, like gets progressively worse to where he says, "I am a sinner. I have the most." Oh, look at that thumbs up! I have the most sin, and then he was king of sinners. And so
yeah,
I think your story in this industry is really good to show that the unqualified are qualified and you are good enough. And this industry is good enough, and you just have to continue to focus on how you can be what I say a better son, right? How can I be a good son to my heavenly father, my earthly father? How can I be a good husband and be a good father to my son? But know that you're never, no matter what your circumstances are, no matter what your vices is, no matter what categorical sin you have, you are still good enough, and you
yeah,
can always be better. You can always get better. And so with that, kind of now launch in. Obviously, now everyone knows you are the drummer for Casting Crowns,
yes,
and so now you're launching into that. You were wrestling with some of the self doubt that Mark helped you with a little bit, but what are some of those things that happened next that started to show? And I know it's hard, right? Because even as you get on these big stages, right? Or when I talk about I've been in all of the major magazines, and it's an empty, hollow shell, right?
yeah,
It doesn't make you a better person for being in Forbes magazine. If anything, it shows you how fake the world is. And so there's always self-doubt that comes in with that. But kind of walk me through now. You're obviously getting into an amazing career, and you're also balancing the landscape industry. Kind of walk me through next steps after Mark gave you that offer.
yeah. So after Mark offered me the job with Crowns, you know, this was not even a year out of rehab. So it was wild just because I mean first off 2020 happened. So that was pretty crazy coming off that. Um, and then it was the spring of 21 when I first went out, and you know, initially, the drummer before me, his name's Brian. He was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna travel with y'all for a weekend or two, just to make sure to kind of pass the baton. Like, here you go. Just make sure I'm good. Any questions I had." And so the first concert was in Phoenix, and I remember flying out, and I was expecting him to play the first couple shows, and me just kind of sit back and just watch him do it. And the first night, he's like, "All right, go for it." And I was like, "Wait, you're not yet. I thought you were gonna do it." He goes, "No, it's all
Yeah.
you." So he was there for a day, and he flew back home the next day. And so, I was prepared. It's funny. I've been listening to Crown since I was like 7, and so it's not like the songs were new. And I knew Mark because he's my youth pastor, and I knew really the whole band because we've all served together. Like the guitar player and his wife, Melody, who plays violin and sings, they were over the praise band growing up, so they kind of taught me how to play drums. So I kind of knew everybody. So it was a good transition for that, just because it's not like meeting a whole bunch of people and then add on like the whole. I mean, you're living with these people in a bus in a metal tube traveling down the interstate. You're living with these people, and uh, that was a good adjustment. It was the biggest thing was so the first company, I say company, I was actually pressure washing before lawn care. And those two things are like
Gotcha.
really set. Like a bunch of dudes who cut grass also pressure wash. Uh,
Yep.
but that was the first thing I did with Crowns because the way we tour, we were busy for a month or two, and then you're home for a while, and then you get busy again. And so I'm not. They say idle hands are the devil's playground, and especially for someone like me, it's not. It's just not good for me just to sit around with nothing to do. So that's when I started doing pressure washing and trying to balance that schedule of I was still working at the church. I would get off the bus sometimes and just hop right on the mower because the bus call and where they park the buses were at the church where I was cutting grass. And so just it all worked out perfectly because I had a lot of accountability in my life. I wasn't left alone. Uh, and those things are important, especially coming off of something like that, because you know I was a liability. I don't know how else to put it, and God just orchestrated so many little intricate things, like the job, the location of it, the hours, just all of it worked out perfectly. Um, and you add on me being I was dating the girl I'm married to now. We started dating 2 months. It's funny. She started dating me uh, like 5 months after I got out of rehab. Um, and she straight laced, awesome family. She went to school got a full ride playing volleyball, and I'm just trying to paint this picture of like just how awesome her family is because you get somebody who did all the right things, bring some tattooed covered dude 5 months out of rehab home, and her parents were just super gracious. And um, I say all that because we started dating in November. I got the job with Crowns in January, and we got engaged in July. So everything just was happening super quick. It's like it's like I crammed 5 years of life into like 6 months. Not because I felt like I was playing catch up, not at all. But it just when I got out of rehab, the last thing on my mind was marriage. It's like heck no, I can't
Hmm.
even like imagine doing that. But you know, God's timeline is just if I could really take time to show just how perfect everything fell into place. And it was chaotic, but um, it's all my entire life has led me up to that point, and it's
it's been awesome, and again, I know a bunch of people in this industry. Like you were saying, it is like the redemption industry, and there's something about it like it's honest work. Like it's honest hard work.
Hmm.
It's not like you're going out and cutting a lawn for $1,000, and uh, it's just funny that you see it that way because I really see it that way. And so, fast forward to like 6 months ago, uh, I became a dad back in August, to a beautiful little girl.
Congratulations again,
Thank
by the
you,
way.
thank you, thank
Your
you.
little girl.
Um, and so I always tell my wife, like, we have so much time at home. Like, how cool would it be if I could actually do lawn care? And I'm talking about this. I have no equipment. Didn't even have a truck. And uh, so it's funny. Her grandparents gifted us a truck uh, back in August, and it's a 2005. I'm looking at it right now. 2005 uh, Chevy Silverado. And when I first got it, I was like, okay, well, now I just need a trailer and equipment. And
Hmm.
I was looking on back in January, and we were talking, and I told her like, hey, like, what if? Let's just pray about it. Let's just see, you know, if it feels right to make an investment and do this. And like a week or two go by, and she was on board, and I was feeling like it was the right thing. And then I found my equipment. I got the mower and the trailer from the same dude, and then I got the hand tools from another guy, and it was just like, I don't know, just very ordained, kind of. Just everything kind of made
Hmm.
sense, and on top of all that, I wasn't even looking at my tour schedule for this past month, but it was chaotic. And so I'm out there in February and March, knocking on doors, putting out door hangers. Not even like, if I would have gotten 100 people, I knew I wouldn't get it. But if I got 100 people to call me, I could only take 20 at the most. And
Yeah.
she was like, "You need to, Lindley, my wife." She was telling me, she's like, "You need to look at your tour schedule because you're home like 4 days in April." And basically, I was like, I didn't want to go be on the road without them, come home, and just leave again to go cut grass. Like a month without your
Hmm.
family, that's just it just wasn't going to be good. And so
Yep.
I got all these clients, and I was looking at the schedule. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is going to be hard on me. It's going to be hard on Lindley. Like was this a bad decision to start this business and kind of just say see ya for a month? A week before tour starts, she got a job offer on the road to travel with us, and that never has happened before. And so I was like, that is there. It came with some stress, but that was just like, wow, like what a God time thing to like get these clients, and then we get to be together, get to travel on the road. And so when I get home, it's not like time missed. I can just go out and work because you've been with me this whole time. And it's been really cool that everything has worked out as it is. It's my first year, so it's come with some growing pains, um, specifically how to interact with customers and be professional and stuff like that. But it's been really, really cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. And I love how you talked about that too, of how you had all these amazing opportunities, but there was still stress and there was still uncertainty in those moments on how you were going to do things, but then how everything kind of landed in the perfect order.
Yeah,
And then it feels like a guided path, but you don't feel like it's a guided path in the
yeah,
moment. You're kind of like, oh my goodness, what did I sign up for?
yeah. And I just realized you were, before I even started talking. The initial question was, you were saying you've been in magazines and I've been in arenas, and like what is reality? and what is not. Because before I started to travel, I had this picture in my mind, like what backstages looked like, what green rooms looked like what it meant to travel in a famous band. And to be honest, it was extremely underwhelming. Um, and that's only because, and that's not, I'm not like trying to diss crowns. It's anybody. It's because the media and other influencers and everybody else paint such a picture of what it's supposed to be like or what they want you to think you're missing out on. And it's the same thing with Instagram, like people posting about their life's achievements and all this stuff. And it's like, can you post about a day that sucks? Because I know you have them too.
Yeah.
And it's just such a curated feed of what they want you to think their life is like. And there are times that I've traveled that like we're in an arena and it's super nice, it's super awesome. But 9 times out of 10, it's like I don't even want to set foot in that shower. That looks disgusting. Like
Yeah. Yep.
it's not what people make it out to be. And there's not a cookie that there's no now. I feel like there's no cookie cutter way to do anything. It's like go out there, cut your teeth on whatever it is, and stop trying to copy and paste somebody else's thing. Like
Yeah.
there's no right way to do it anymore. And if you're just like people can just post and make it seem like one thing, but you'll be really let down when you realize that you've attained for the thing they've painted, and the thing they painted is just a lie, and it's
Yeah.
void of any deep meaningful thing. And the older I get, the more meaningful things are experiences and things that are not very digital, and like starting a family and raising a baby. It's not uh, having people cheer for you, and it's not like you said. It's not being in magazines. It's those things are just like it's like a fraud of what people think happiness and fulfillment is, and it's obviously.
Yeah.
I'm a Christian, and I believe that desire people want, that thing people keep painting, that this is what happiness is. Uh, that's a hole in somebody's heart that everyone has, that is for God. That is for God of the Bible, and it's not for anything else. It's not for money. It's not for achievements. Um, and I feel that deeply, and I think it doesn't take some church going person to feel that. I think everybody feels that there is a longing for another thing, that consumerism has really exploited about us. So this is what
Yep.
you need so you can be happy, and then you get it, and it's
Yeah.
like that's not what I needed actually.
Yep. I didn't need that.
Yeah.
I needed the opposite of that. And so I think, me personally, that perfection is a drug
Yeah.
and success, right? Because you chase it. You want it. You always want to get to the next level, and it's never good enough. And you only want people to see the good times. You only want people to see the magazines, your face on the side of a bus, whatever it is. But really, what I found is true success is not clean. It's not what you think it is. It's helping people. How can you help someone else
Yeah.
in their time of need or where they're at, and how can you be a good human, right? Because we're on this earth for a limited amount of time, and on my deathbed, I don't want to think back and think of, oh man, I should have achieved X, Y, and Z when it came to what the world tells me is success. What I should have done is spend a little bit more time with the customer that's having an issue. Sat down with the gentleman outside a retirement community and heard their story? Or how could you be there to help someone in a time of need? And I think that's truly what success is. And when you boil that down too, is how can you be present with those you love? How can you cultivate those experiences, like you said, so that you can involve your family and have more memories with them than just dad or mom was chasing money to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Or once the bills were paid, it was that next step. And so how can you avoid that? And I think that's one thing that I love about the lawn and landscape industry is that it's legitimately hard and it's legitimately dirty, but it is possible. And people overlook it constantly. They think of it as a secondhand career, right?
Yeah.
They don't think of it as, oh, like when someone hears that you own a lawn care company, their reaction is very different than when they hear that you're a drummer for Casting Crowns.
Yeah, their reaction is like, so where did you mess up?
Yeah, yes. And, but it's the exact opposite because we all mess up. And anything, it's just people already know that you're broken to an extent because of the stigma that's around it, but it's not. I know more people who gross $500,000 to $1 million a year that are in the lawn and landscape industry than anywhere else. But they're rough around the edges, to say the least, but they love what they're able to do in the industry that they're able to do it. And that's what gets me excited every day. Is
Yeah.
how can I help? How can I get involved and do that? So, yeah, I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, like it is different when, like the reaction to people, and I hate it, but like when someone says, I'm a drummer for a famous band compared to I'm an owner of a lawn care company, it's like people immediately, a lot of people have a file for you. It's, I'll put you there, I'm going to put this guy who's in an important band over this way. And, it's something I was taught growing up is that in terms of ministry, like I said, ministry is like a churchy word, but really it's what are you good at, and how can you do that and point others to Jesus? And people, it's like if you're good with your hands and you're a mechanic, that's your ministry. Like it's not going up on church on Sundays and preaching. It's like there's an old metaphor. It's like, who is important? Was it like, who's more important? Was it Billy Graham or the school bus driver who picked Billy Graham up?
Mm-hmm.
And there are no levels to church. It's not like I got the drummer gig and was like, all right, church was just a trampoline for me to get to where I wanted to go. It's you stay where you're at, and if God uses something, He uses it. But there are no levels in the kingdom of God. It's, here are your talents. What are you going to do with them? And if God wants to take you in front of people, He'll take you in front of people. If He wants to keep you where you're at and work with the one person that's in front of you, it's like, what do you like? You shouldn't try to get in front of people. There's another saying that I don't want to say it because I'm sure I'm going to screw it up, but it's, people are focused on being in front of people, but they won't talk to the people that are in front of them. And it's like, basically like, there are people in your life that you could speak to and you can speak into, but you're so focused on wanting the more important ministry role. You're more focused on wanting to be, whatever it is. And it's like, man, we, as Christians, really should focus on the people that are in front of us and stop trying to make what is more important and trying to get there when it's It's all important, like I said, and there's no
Mhm.
levels to this. This is the guy in a famous band saying this. Like I don't, there's not a single ounce of me, and this is not me saying, "Oh, I'm so humble," but I'm saying this because I know of where I've been, and I did all the wrong things. I did not do the right things to get this job. If there was a a resume or like a list of things to do to get this drummer job, I would not have done a single one of them. And so it's coming from a place of God showed me grace, and Mark has shown me grace through crowns that I know where I stand in all of this, and I just want to point others to Jesus, regardless of if it's in a front lawn when I'm sweating or if it's backstage somewhere. It's all about uh, bringing other people closer to Jesus and not, just playing this game.
Yep. No, I love that. And I think what I'm really excited for is that, and here's my assumption, not my assumption, but I'm sure this is what's going to happen, is people are going to come and they're going to listen to this podcast because of you being in Casting Crowns. But I
Yeah.
think people are going to learn who Jack is from this, and not just who the role you play in the band, and see that, to your point, there are no levels. Like, there's only grace, and focusing on that, and being firmly rooted where you're planted, and knowing that God will guide you and open doors for you wherever you go. So I'm super excited for people to hear your story. And so another question I have is, how did you come up with Jack of All Blades? I know it's your first name, but when you were naming the company, which I love your logo, I love everything about it, how
Thanks,
did
dude.
that kind of come to fruition?
My wife actually came up with a name. There's a few that was, bouncing around, and I would take it to the. I don't know if you can hear my little girl out there, but she's screaming. But um, I would go to the LLC thing for Georgia to see if it had been taken,
Mm-hmm.
and everything I was coming up with was taken, and so she just kind of threw out, the play on words of Jack of all trades, and sure enough, it wasn't taken, and I feel like it fits, and I feel like it flows good off the tongue, like Jack of all blades.
Yep. I know you don't know a whole lot about my story, but it's interesting, the parallels. Um, so my wife, also super straight laced, came from a very foundationally rooted Christian family from Dubai,
Oh, wow.
and then moved here. She was the one who straightened me up, right? I always say that she found me.
Yeah.
Straight out of the military, I was rough around the edges. I had beer and pierogies in my fridge. I was a different Steven when she found me, but she's been a huge blessing in my life. But she also came up with the name Lawn Buddy.
That's
So
awesome.
I don't think a lot of people know that. So we were all, so it was her and I, and it was just over 8 years. Lawn Buddy turns 8 years old next Friday. And so we were coming up with names for, like, hey, what should we call this thing? And it was her. She was the one who came up with Lawn Buddy. So the
Women
ladies
be
in our life
smart.
have shaped us.
Yeah.
Yep, this is true. This is true. They're very capable. So so with that, as you guys are continuing to grow, not only your career in music, but also your career in lawn and landscape, what are some goals of yours? What would you love to see happen to Jack of All Blades?
I would love to get into installing hardscapes, uh, like the actual landscaping aspect of it. I would like to have a different crew for maintenance and for installations. That's what I really I feel like it's a good moneymaker off season. Uh, and I would really, ideally, uh, it'd be cool to be hands off and for me to have a guy that I trust to kind of run it when I'm gone, to you know be self-sustaining and not feel like I need to be home in order for grass to get cut. Um, a lot of that I was thinking about, like, even what if business was so great that I could do that. Like, I don't even know who I could hire that I would trust to do that and to do the work that the work that I would want done, and also trust with my equipment. It's I don't know. It's like, I don't know if people just take a risk. I mean, I guess I people took a risk on me, so I guess I'll just have to bite the bullet on somebody. But yeah, I would love to one day, whenever it is, just to be hands off and maybe just do the paperwork. I don't even know like what hands off means in the lawn care industry when you own the company.
Yeah,
But
that's
whatever
awesome.
that
Well, we can
means,
help you
that's
get
what I
there.
want.
And I can't wait for you to have
Yeah,
your mark moment, right? When you get to that point and you're able to then kind of pass that lesson on. And I'm super excited to see what the future holds for you and your careers. All right, yeah, and so I'm super excited to see kind of where you're going to take everything. And so with that, how can our audience, or obviously it's business owners that are in the lawn landscape industry, but how can they connect with you and kind of watch you grow and reach out to you with any questions?
yeah. So best way would be Instagram. My Instagram tag it's just my entire name. It's Jack Ryan Williams. No spaces, just all connected. An email, the best email would be, just my name, Jack at castingcrowns.com, if you prefer email for whatever reason. But Instagram is the best way if you just want to message me or whatever it is. I check Instagram daily.
Awesome. Yeah, and then keep an eye out for where you're going on tour. Make sure you go and just yell really loud from the crowd, right? Just say Jack
Yeah,
of all blades. So
yeah, or just hold up a sign saying "cut my grass" and I'll know.
okay, yeah, perfect, perfect. So I for some of these closing questions, I prepped you for one, but I'm going to save that one for the end. One thing I
Okay.
like to do is, do you have any questions for me? You can put me in the hot seat. I asked you a bunch of questions.
Man, I get a lot of random questions. What branch of the military were you in?
I was in the Marine Corps.
Marines? Okay. How long
hmm
were you there for?
So I did 4 years. So primarily stationed out of Camp Pendleton, but spent time in Camp Lejeune as well as a deployment to Afghanistan in 2011.
Oh, wow, dude. Well,
Yep.
thank you for that, first of all.
You're welcome.
What was your job?
Yeah. So my job was people don't. This is where it throws a loop because where I'm at in technology has nothing to do with what I was doing in the military. So in the military, I was a mechanic with Combat Logistics Battalion 5. And so we were attached to 1st Marines. And so that's typically what we would do there. And so, yeah, I was a mechanic.
Wow, dude. So you were just working on anything from just normal vehicles to airplane? I don't know how it works. Like, were
Yeah,
you
no.
assigned a
So
certain...
what we did was we worked on Humvees, MRAPs, um, uh, basically all I'm starting to list acronyms off, and I'm like, no one's going to know what I'm talking about. But basically, it's everything from small trucks to big trucks.
Gotcha.
And so that's what we did. And so basically making sure that everything was um, operating functional, ready to go to do missions. That was our primary role.
Nice. So you don't cut grass, right? You just are the tech side of things.
Yeah. So kind of the origin story to how I got here was obviously I didn't cut grass. I mean, everyone cut grass in high school. That's what everyone
Yeah.
did. My dad's owned a snow removal company in Wyoming for as long as I can remember because that's where I was born and raised, is Wyoming. And I got out of the military in 2013 and then immediately went and worked for a mine where I was doing capital project management. So I somehow was qualified for people to trust me with money, and then we'd go build stuff. And that's how I met my wife. She was an electrical engineer on a project that we were doing for a string of power poles. Long story short, actually very similar. We dated for a short period of time. I proposed, and then we got married 10 years ago this September. And then she got a job out here in Wichita, Kansas, and so we uprooted and came out here. And keep in mind, there was no technology involvement through all of this. I mean, I bought technology packages that we would install at these mines, but zero software. And so when we got to Wichita, I foolishly thought, I'll be able to find a job. I've got a good background in both military and capital project management. I'll be able to find something. And I couldn't find anything, dude. Nothing. And so I ended up working armed security because it was what I was still qualified to do on the nights, a night shift.
Yeah.
And then I would go to school full time for entrepreneurship because I didn't have a traditional degree. So I was like, okay, well, I love entrepreneurship. I'd started several small businesses before that. And so I was like, I'm just going to study this. And it was through me working night shift, going to school full time, recently being married, and then moving to the Midwest where, I mean, you know this down in Georgia, the grass grows fast. In Wyoming, we could get away with like once a month. Look at that. Even the software.
Even the computer agrees.
Yep. And so I was just behind. And so I was always trying to call and facilitate service with a company in Wichita, and the communication was horrible. The payment method was horrible. And it was just frustrating from a homeowner standpoint. And so I was like, there has to be a better way. And so the original concept of Lawn Buddy was simply bridging the communication and payments gap. So how can we communicate with the business owner and how can we pay them? And then it was through working with them in the field. So like I legitimately went and worked in the field with these business owners for about a year, and I saw there are no software tools that are helping them.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I went from my background to technology. And then I found an amazing business partner who is a developer. His name's Philip Matthew. That's been doing this with me since, again, 8 years, and for him in June. And so we've been hard at it for a long time. And my favorite thing is just being able to serve and help real business owners with real problems and not sugarcoat it and try not to, like, the CEO is untouchable. No, that's the exact opposite. I'm very available for customers. So I think that answered your question.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's I'm always so intrigued by like how and maybe it's always been like this, but I was just ignorant to it. But how people get to like how they landed where they are, and it's rarely like, oh, I went to school and out of school I got that, and so it's just I don't know. It's always interesting to hear just how weird life is and how it just seems to always kind of work out.
Yep. God qualifies the unqualified. I was very
That's right.
unqualified at the time to do what I'm doing today, but yeah, those stories are always fun, and it's more common than you think. And I think that's one of the things that I love telling people is like, your dreams are not out of reach. You're just
that's so
you're
true.
mentally blocking it and saying I could never do that.
Yeah.
And you're ignoring the little moments that are being set in front of you to be able to seize the blessing, if that makes sense. But yeah, what else you got? Any other questions?
I don't think I do. I mean, I could, but I know that they gave us a time limit, and so I don't want to just keep talking. But it's been a pleasure talking to you, dude.
So my last question for you, and my favorite question to ask, because you are a new dad. What, 4 months? 4 months old?
8 months.
8 months. Sorry, 8 months old. So you've had
good.
8 months to come up with your best dad joke. Let's have it. What is it?
Why? Okay. Why was the broom late for work?
Why was the
Any
broom
idea?
late for work? I have no idea.
It overswept.
It overswept. I'm going to steal that one, and I'm going to use it multiple times tonight.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Yep.
I'll send you a check for royalties on it.
Okay, perfect. The my favorite one that's going on now, it's not really, I guess you could call it a dad joke, but my son will come up and he'll say, "Daddy, I'm thirsty," and I'll reach my hand out and I'll say, "Hi, thirsty. I'm Daddy."
Dude, my dad did that to me all the time growing up. It made me so angry.
Oh, it makes him furious, but it makes me laugh.
Do
He's like,
something about it.
Daddy. So,
Yeah.
but all right, Jack, thank you so much for spending time with us and telling us your story and kind of your faith journey. And I will be in contact, but thank you for spending time with us and kicking off
Yeah.
the newest season of Lawn Theory with us.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me, and I hope that this next season is great, and I'm looking forward to eventually meeting you in person.
Yeah, likewise, dude. So, all right, dude, have fun with the family.
All right, dude. Take it easy.
Make that strawberry cake.
You best believe I'm about to.